Hey everyone, how you doing today? Back working on this MX5, and I just gave it a quick little test here. I wanted to see what I could fit in this and see where the CPU is coming out at. And I appreciate all the feedback on the question I had about what tier it should be. It's a little bit mixed. That's cool. What I'm thinking is, what I'd like to do is release this as a tier 2, but give it all the upgrade slots to add a lot more functionality to it and raise it to a tier 3. So to set up the interior so it's ready for all that fun stuff. Now it'll come stock with a warp drive like it originally did, but the shield's a biggie, and something else that's a big one to me too is the weapon loadout on it currently isn't like good for POIs. Like 4 Gatling guns doesn't, it's not what I would be attacking POI turrets with. What I really want is like a set of 4 rocket launchers. So every shot you fire 4 rockets at once. With a well-placed shot, you can take out a turret in 1 hit. And that's typically the way I like to roll with this. Kind of line up, shoot, and move away. Now I typically use the dumb rockets simply because the other ones cost they cost more essentially, and they're not really needed for going after stationary targets. So to start with, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna lower down some in-game volume here. When I'm talking, it keeps on. It's so loud right now that. I can't hear myself talk when those doors open. So, all right. Anyway, as the ship is, let me turn it on real quick. I have a couple tier 3 blocks in it. I just wanted to see how it actually flew with the current thruster placement. And considering there's no weight on this, and there's still not like all the interior in there, it's kind of sluggish. It's not bad, but as soon as you get a little bit of weight on this thing, it's not going to steer well at all. So that's a concern, and I'm thinking it does not have enough thrusters at the time to handle the amount of weight that's actually in the ship. Well, or could be in the ship with 10K storage. As in CPU currently, it is at tier 2 level here, and but it's almost capped at tier 2. And basically, I got to finish the interior off yet. But as in tier 3, I wanted to put in some temporary parts here to see if I could make the numbers work out where this thing could support a shield as well as some rocket launchers. And then see if I have any leftover CPU after the fact. Now, granted, if I put in a shield, I automatically know I'm going to need to add at least another generator or 2 as well, because when those charge up, it takes a lot. It has 2 generators only on the ship right now, and it's enough to have it operate with the current thruster loadout and no shield. But that's all going to change if you throw in a shield and whatnot. And I think it needs more thrusters, to be honest, too. So I'm going to add a shield there. It already had the Pentaxa tank, so I don't need to worry about that. And I'm going to add in 4 rocket launchers. Let me also stop the time of day from moving. All right, so what does that do for this thing here? All right, so with shield and rocket launchers in, I'm okay at tier 3. We've got about close to 5,000 CPU remaining. So, well, hold on, before I go too much farther. I'm putting those in still standard flying. I'm in a good safe zone on power. But let me grab something else here in a minute. Where where's that stuff? Let's grab some pentaxid, fill up the tank, turn on the shield, and fly around. And now you can see what's going on with the power there. Now I'm hitting about 160% power usage. So that's another important thing there. So I'm going to turn this back off a second, and I'm going to slop in a couple more generators. Man, the in-game volume, even though I got this cranked down so much, is still really, really loud. I want to hear it a little bit, but man, I know you guys don't hear it that way. It's different through the headphones, I'm sure. That's still too loud. Hit the right button. There we go. Okay. We don't. Well. All right. So now I can barely hear anything. That's good. All right. Next part. Generators. So let's try one. I don't think one's going to be enough, though. Turn this back on again. Fly it. Okay, yeah, one's definitely not going to be enough. Let's get one more in here. Oh, shield's on. Okay, now I can place this again. And let's turn the shield back on again. Okay, shield's charging. Power's looking good. Power's looking good now. Staying in the blue with 3-direction, like turning at once here. I'm only getting up to about 80%, which is totally cool. All right, so 4 generators is enough. That's going to put me at not too bad on CPU. I still got about 3,500 CPU left. A little less than that, but close. All right. I think this might work out. I was kind of feeling pessimistic about this build, but maybe, just maybe, it can all come together at a tier 3 ratio. And if I leave it upgradable, then I could release it as a tier 2, which I think it should be at, but you could easily slap in a couple CPU blocks, a couple rocket launchers, and a shield, and maybe even a constructor. I've actually got enough space available for that as well, CPU wise. Those are 2,000 CPU. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that this thing would need that uses much in CPU besides the constructor, and I don't think there is. Fridges and things like that are, well, it's already got one in anyway. They're pretty cheap CPU wise. And this is still, even though I think I buried my controller behind this generator here, this is still at 10,000 regular storage and 1,500 ammo storage. Maybe I ought to take the ammo storage up to about 2,000 because it has the rocket launchers on there now. Give you some extra space. All right, so I think all that's going to work. All right. Can't really complain about this. So maybe this could be a worthwhile functional ship yet. I was very much worried about that at its size range. But one big factor here that I want to address, and I should do that now before it's finished off and whatnot, is I need to get more thrust on this thing. I think it needs to be definitely more agile. If you're going to try to take on combat. Obviously, if you can avoid getting hit, that's your best defense. So that's a big factor there. I didn't like some of the aspects that I did too, because I used to have all the side thrusters kind of in the center area of the ship, and that's, like, with the new flight model, a big no-no. That does not allow you to steer these things without RCS. So you definitely don't want your thrusters along there. That's why I moved them about the only place I could find room for down on this bottom row. It kind of keeps them exposed too, which I'm not particularly liking, but With a shield, it's a different story. All right. So anyway, more maneuverability. Let's see what can be done with that. Start with. I'm gonna get symmetry on too. I want to try to add in some more thrusters and or bigger thrusters. I'm not sure how far I can dig into this. If I can get some 3x3s in here, then I don't need to put in more of the small ones. I think that's good. I just wanted to see on the proximity. I do not want the thrusters right up next to the cockpit. It's more dangerous in my opinion. I'd rather have that block row that is there before you get to the cockpit. So I was just checking on that. Let me grab the thrusters I was thinking about. Again, these, probably these. The only thing I don't like about any of the thrusters beyond this one is you can't shape them. Like these, you can make them as like a wedge shape or solid, where all these other ones don't have alternative models for them to do that kind of thing. There. Oh, I had a bunch of them already. Alright, so rather than the two small ones here, I'm going to try to... Oh, these are going to look so silly though on the bottom because they're going to be totally exposed. But, you know, again, it doesn't matter really. And I can't put a block row below them to hide them unless I want to make the entire ship another block row higher. But, you know, I could. And I don't really have to necessarily do that across the whole ship either. I could simply put those in and then change the landing gear out so it is up another block row, and then I could put at least some thin blocks covering these thrusters. Hey, all the little thought process that goes into all this. Alright, so what does that do for my CPU? Not much there. Okay, so we still got, I'm trying to keep 2,000 available if I can. And I noticed in the comments too that, you know, constructor is not really needed, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I don't know. I always did that because occasionally when I flew these ships around, even though this isn't the right type for it, in fact, yeah, HVs is more important because you can mow down some trees and create biofuel on the fly and power your HV pretty easily. But SVs, you're not obviously getting trees with it, so that doesn't really make it valid. Alright, so now we took the side thrust to 6 of these larger ones. That might affect my power as well, and I'm still got 2,000 CPU available. Okay, looking good. Not do much of anything. Wow, it's really get some hardcore stutter with that there. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe I got close enough to load something in the background. Hard to say. The strafing sense, actually, yeah, it's just straight up strafing thrusters. It's still no spring chicken. it's all right. It's all right, but it's trying to think. Is there a way I could get more out of the thrust if it was set up differently? Let me get so I can look at the ground on here. But I got these pretty much as far out as I can get them. My big thing is maybe these thrusters here ought to be another block row out in that direction. Would that make any difference whatsoever? And that's all I meant by that is doing that there. Of course, I don't want to use any RCS. Got a little bit of CPU available, but I found RCS. Well, you know what? It's hard to say. Let's grab a couple RCS and just see what happens. I hate putting RCS on these things, though, because it's just like wasting. Whatever RCS you got to put on it is that much less storage or something else you'll end up having if you're tight on CPU. If you got like extra space available, but typically I don't. Now RCS also are the most effective at your center of mass. And here's something too. I'm going to turn off this. Let's see if center of mass is actually working. It is. So it's saying my center of mass is right here at this block row here. And by the way, there's some other questions too. And like there's people that watch the videos, there's different levels of how much they know about the game. And I'm going to try to explain things a little bit better too. So when I'm going to all these things and symmetry and like what I just turned on here, I hit N on the keyboard and it brings up this menu over here. And then obviously you have your symmetry options, you have a bunch of copy paste options. You can actually like save bounding boxes around parts in a list and put those, basically keep copying them more for modular designs, as well as the debug button over here, which will show you center of mass, which I'm doing now. Structural integrity, which is not valid unless you're dealing with a base. It shows you oxygen and airtight blocks, and I use this a lot too. But when putting in RCS on a ship, your optimal place to put it is at the center of mass, as close to it as you can do. Like one block row up, like if I put RCS floating right there, that would probably be the most effective place, or like the row right next to it here too. I could put the RCS in the ship. However, that typically doesn't work well for ships itself, because look where it is, right in the middle of the ship, right exactly where the interior space is. So I typically cannot leave RCS in the optimal spot. Depends on the design. But, okay, so we added 2 RCS. I don't know if I can tell much of a difference or not. CPU-wise, see, it's that already put it over where I couldn't fit a constructor in here now. That's just with 2 RCS. So again, what I've been finding though, and it doesn't work well with all builds because you don't necessarily have neat places to put more thrusters, but thrusters, for the amount of maneuverability you'll get, are far more effective than RCS and cheaper on CPU. So essentially, you're better off by putting in thrusters and not RCS. You're going to get more performance versus your CPU out of the deal. But it's difficult. It's difficult on a lot of builds to do that. This one included. But this one here, I am trying to figure out if there's any other weird, wacky ways I could get the thrusters further from the center of mass on it. And it's kind of difficult to do, but I'm looking for places I could punch holes into the ship to do that sort of thing. So what I'm doing here is I'm carving out a couple blocks there. I don't particularly like to do it this way, but I don't have a lot of room to work with. Where I could take some of like these lift thrusts from here and try to move them up closer here, if possible. And I don't think that's going to be quite possible. If I went with the 3x3 ones here, maybe. Didn't mean to do that. That's another thing too. I didn't even know about it when I first started, and a comment gave me a heads up on the undo button. I use it religiously now. That is the coolest button ever. Alright, let's grab some more thrusters. And again, all this is to try to make the ship faster and more responsive, but staying in a, hopefully, around a little less than 38,000 CPU. So I could add a constructor, but it's optional. You know, it's like I like to have that wiggle room. Like maybe I could do this. Since I added those thrusters there, I'm going to remove these thrusters here. But now they're further up front, and they also are a little bit more powerful than the other ones that were there. Which, when you're dealing with weights and volumes, your lift is quite important. I'm kind of checking. I do a lot of this by feel. I mean, does a ship feel right? I can look at the stat numbers, and you know, after a while, you sort of get an idea on, you know, how it's going to feel. But I mean, really, the important factor, in my opinion, is how does it really fly? Does it feel like it's a decent flying ship? Is it maneuverable enough? Can I stop quick enough? Okay, so reverse thrust is really weak on this, and that might be affecting my other the other stats as well. Oh, but I really kind of messed myself up for putting in good reverse thrust there. Because I put those other thrusters right below there. Not enough room if I want to add the bigger ones now. Okay, so let's change this around again. Probably ought to get symmetry back on here again. I didn't need to remove all those. Yeah, let's take those out. Take these out. Replace the little ones with the tougher thrusters, which is probably, you know, the difference between the two, I think, is almost double on those two thrusters there. So since those are in place, actually, that still works. So I could still actually keep the other thrusters I had here. Or no, I can't. Maybe if I carve out some more blocks up in here. Alright. So how are we now? Oh, and you know, also I left those up. Oh no, I already did take out the RCS. Okay, never mind. So this is RCS-less. That should be a new word. Put it right up there with, you know, the listing lists. Alright, well. Okay, so maneuverability. That helped a little bit. No RCS. It feels pretty good. I'm getting more roll and a little more pitch than it had before. And reverse, it's going to stop a little bit faster and be able to go a little bit faster backwards. In fact, it can hit 66 on speed in reverse, so that's cool. Now, all this extra thrust is also important because of the weight on it, and that's going to be like another round of tests. In fact, what I really ought to do, if I'm being smart here, I'm going to save this real quick. We're just going to call this a Proto-MX5 refit. I like to call a lot of the things I'm working on starting with the letter A, so they're at the top of my build list, and that's the purpose behind that. So I'm going to exit out of there. I'm going to resume a game, and let's get into the proving grounds. Oh, I have 6 testing. Oh man, I changed it to creative. that is one thing. I don't like to necessarily build stuff in survival, even though it has an optional creative mode, and that's turned on by going to the console, which is a tilde key, and typing in CM. Um, in fact, you'll see me do all this here soon. Oh god, and every time I come into creative mode, I'm just totally screwed up too. So, God mode first, SBP, which allows you to spawn blueprints, item menu, or IM, that, oh, I must have already been on. That turns on the H key, which gives you all the parts available. And sometimes I'll use map as well, and this will show all the objects on the map. And there's the only other console command I typically use besides messing with the weather is DI, which is debug information. And I usually use that only if I'm looking to replace a part with another. So what I want to do now is I gotta switch this to survival, but it's not gonna work until I exit and start it back up again. Now you notice that it says here it's survival. And I'm going to have to put in a lot of those other commands again too. But this is how I can test. I know I've been told about the mutilation and broken leg forever, but the problem is it's just every time I spawn in, it seems like I always forget to like spawn in the safe spot, and I hate wasting time to mess with trying to get healthy again. Every single time it seems like I spawn into survival. Alright, so we're out here. Let's spawn in the ship. And it wasn't that a proto, no. Except my whole thing with the A's is I got so many things that start with A now. That oh duh. Oh, man. Hold on. SPP, item menu. Yeah, I think that's all I need. Alright, so let's spawn this in. Let's see if I got some fuel available on me already. I do. I don't even care about oxygen right now. And, okay, so to test weights and volumes, a lot of times it's done with the elevator blocks. So let me get over to CV or base. And, oh, I had a ton of them on me. So I'm going to go fill this cargo up here with as many of these as I can pop in there. So 7,500. Alright, that's pretty darn close. Also, let me also get some ammo in here. What am I doing? Oh yeah. What do I want? How about some 15 mil for the Gatling guns and the rockets? I better find out. I do wish, not that it's like it doesn't take that much to get used to it, I suppose, but I do wish the information on weapon or the ammo for all the different guns was a little more clear on what you needed for what. Like I'm sure if I played the game more, I would just memorize, everything. But right now, it's like, what rockets do I really need for the SV rocket launchers, which is kind of a pain in the butt sometimes finding out, because I got to okay, I got to find them in the menu and then look at the ammo here, which is 130 MSL. So, what are these? What are these? These are what I need. And lots of 200. Yeah. I'm always filling up my inventory. Okay. So let's fill you up. How much can we carry? Alright, 1,500 would get you 1,200 rockets and 3,000. That's quite a lot, actually. So, but we're at max. And last but not least, let's give this thing some pentaxid as well. Let's fill it up with pentaxid. Okay, so we're pretty much loaded up on this ship now. Weights and volumes should be on. How does it work? Alright. Not too bad. Not too bad. It took off from the ground. I got some maneuverability. Seems a little wiggle. Well, I don't know. It's not bad. I guess everything with the flight model seems a little wonky, turning side to side a little bit, but yeah, I think this is working out. Alright, go to my little Martian setup over here. This was a former photo shoot area for prior creations. Alright, well, that's what I wanted to know. Does the ship work with weights and volumes and still fly okay right now? And it does. And my CPU is okay. So I think all the information I really need to know on the ship is there now. I know it can work. I know I've got the CPU. Now it's just finishing off the ship with the specs that it has. And I don't want to do that in survival here, so I'm going to just get the heck out of survival and back into creative. But knowing that is really good too, because in the past, you know, it's getting more and more technical with all this stuff. In the past, you could pretty much assume your ship's going to work, but now it's a little different. You know, it's like there's too many variables in there to know if things are going to be okay or not. Let me get this. I'll just leave it where it's at. Let's just turn you off. When you're in creative too, you can turn off the ship and it'll just stay floating in the air like this, which is kind of nice because then you can get to the bottom of it easy and whatnot. I usually turn these things off so I don't have to hear the thrusters the whole time when I'm working on it. Hold up. I don't know if you see that. Did I miss putting 2 thrusters on one side here? I think I did. Let me spawn in what I saved and see if it's got the same problem. It does. Whoopsie. That's all right. Well, the weird thing is it worked without them. So I can't imagine this would hurt performance. Just make me double check CPU again. Yeah, I'm still below 38,000. 38,000, you know, typically, like I said before, just a number that I wanted to try to stick to if I could, so I could get a constructor in the ship, which probably isn't that important anyway. But well, with the extra thruster, 2 thrusters. Hold on, I'm gonna have to turn on the shield and see if I got enough juice yet. Shield charging. No, darn it. Look at that, 129. That's what I forgot to put in. All right, I'm gonna need one more generator. Oh, and I only got one more in here anyway. What the heck am I doing? I think I lost my mind. Grab a generator here in a minute. For some reason I thought I added 2 of these already. Oh. Shield. Okay, and shield on. Ooh, 96. I don't like to go in the red. I know it's temporary only when the shield's charging, but man, I don't like to go in the red. I don't even like to go in the yellow. So turn the shield off, add 1 more generator, and turn the shield back on. Get some fuel in here too. Oh, I didn't have any pentaxid in this one. Thought I did. Okay, so shield is on and charging. Okay, that's better. See, I'm at, with the shield charging at 77%. Happy with those numbers. Alright, and we fly okay. What did that do to the CPU? Still just below 3,800. Okay. Well, I'm feeling far more encouraged than I was the other day, to be honest. I think, especially asking the question, I think this path here is going to make things, going to make me happier with the ship as well, because I didn't want to just have it the way it was. However, all these parts, such as the 4 rocket launchers, oh, you know what? All the new thrusters I added in, I'm sure would put this ship above Tier 2. So maybe it's just going to have to be a solid Tier 3 ship. I was trying to make it upgradable, but it's got to have some of those parts in there, especially the thrusters, because the last thing I want a player to do is have to build and add thrusters to a ship too. Hold on. Now I'm going to strip out a lot of these new parts that I popped in to see if I can keep the CPU at the right numbers, I guess. Obviously, without a shield, it doesn't need all 3 of these generators, or it didn't before. I still needed 1 of them. Okay, so it's at 92. That's too much. So let me put 1 generator back. All right, so we're good there. CPU is probably looking bad though. Oh, I'm totally confused at this point in time. I must have left the shield in. Yeah, left the shield. I think the problem though is, yeah, see, now I blew the 15,000 CPU. Well, it kind of the idea of upgrading it from Tier 2 to Tier 3 is fading fast here. Because the chassis kind of really needs this. In fact, when I was flying it around too, I also thought maybe I should have some more rear thrust on it too. Alright. Damn. How do you do this? How do you try to make a ship that goes from Tier 2 to Tier 3 with the chassis and everything like this? just experiment a minute here. I'm going to remove... The beefier thrusters are doing it, and the more of them, I think. But what if I took out, like, say, 6 of these things? I'm trying to keep all the lift thrust in place because that's still going to be needed regardless of what tier level it's at. Still not enough. I mean, another option I've got is to reduce the storage, but I don't know, 10K is fair. I didn't want to go lower. I could go a little bit lower, but it doesn't make that big of a difference. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still above CPU, and that's the thing. I got to add more blocks to it too. So, I don't think it's going to be worthwhile to upgrade. You'd have to do so much stuff at this point in time, swapping thrusters and things. Yeah, I think it's just going to have to be a tier 3. And if it's going to have a shield, and it's not a super tough ship, so a shield's pretty important. It's only steel hauled. Yeah, I think that's going to have to be the case. I think tier 3 would be the deal. And trust me, I really wanted to allow you to upgrade this. Wait a minute. It doesn't necessarily need 4 Gatling guns either. Those might be kind of expensive. So now I've got some. So let's put some thrusters back. Maybe it can still work. It's just take off some Gatling guns too. So at tier 2 level, the ship is kind of just fly around and warp. Maybe shoot a couple wild animals or drones, but you definitely don't want to be engaging POIs with it. But later on, if it was upgraded, you could add a whole ton of weapons. And I still got a little bit more. Can I get... I hate stripping out thrusters. I never asked anybody or to add thrusters to a build, to upgrade it. I usually like to have those in there already. Oh man, 300 CPU. Urgh. Just too tight. I fear that adding the rest of the blocks and things to it, I'll go past 300 CPU. That's of course with no constructor yet, and missing 2 of my side thrusters here as well, which it might not need all of them. In fact, no, it's probably good how it is right there. So how fast is this going forward? Max speed 69. That's good. Backwards, max speed 69. Side to side, max speed 69. Oh, I don't think that really tells me individually what direction will go in what speed. Barrel rolls are a little on the sluggish side, but can deal with that. I think it feels all right though. I think it feels generally fairly smooth, agile enough. Okay. Well, anyway, I kind of worked out the logistics of it, and can I make the rest of the ship work with remaining like 299 CPU? to fill in the rest of the missing blocks and do up the interior? I don't think so. Unless maybe I can find ways to cut certain things from it. Like, okay, to start with, these side spotlights are absolutely pointless. I'm not sure why I put them there in the first place. I thought it was just cool to have spotlights or something. But in fact, typically with ships now, I've only been putting spotlights on the front, and once in a very great while, I'll put one on the back to highlight the area behind it if you exit out the back. But spotlights, yeah, they have a very minimal impact on CPU. Just out of curiosity's sake, this is just to see. I'm going to add in a whole bunch of blocks on about what I'm anticipating I would need to finish off the ship. Let me put in some steel blocks, some carbon substrate blocks, and a couple lights, I think. Sensors. Lights, couple sensors. Well, it still has some of that stuff already intact on it too. So that is my estimated amount of materials I would need to complete the ship. Rough guess, and it works. Okay. All right. I'm back on the upgradable idea. The big key to that was it has to come stock with only 2 Gatling guns, though. But I like the idea of being able to spawn it quicker and easier so you can use it, and then when you do get the tier 3 blocks and things like that, you can slop them in here. In other words, you can get going with the ship quicker and easier if I left it upgradable, like I think will work now. So anyway, that is kind of what I wanted to do on the video, is to just go through all the dynamics to see if it was possible to make this work from, you know, starting at tier 2 to upgrading to tier 3, and then to see, of course, what function could be put on the ship at that tier level. In fact, okay, so one last thing. At 14,000, let me pop back in the generators and the shield. So to upgrade this, it would need 2 generators, and oh, come on, I thought I just put the shield in my toolbar. I didn't. I don't even know. All right, grab another shield. Where did it go? Oh, right there. All right, I'm blind. Okay, shield, 2 generators, 2 Gatling guns, and 4 rocket launchers. There. Okay, 37, and then, ha ha ha. And here's a weird thing about the constructor with me, by the way. I've never built an SV short of the MX1 that didn't come stock with the constructor, and I just do that because of, I don't know, convenience. It's basically, if you got a CV, or SV, I mean, you're always going to have the ability to at least craft basic stuff with one of these, or process some ore or something as you're flying. And I like the option to be able to do that. Yeah, I get it. It's not necessary. But it's just one of those convenience things I like to have on a ship if I can do it. Always have been able to do it before. In fact, a lot of times I probably ran far too many constructors on a ship. But I can still do it. So we're at tier 3. The upgrade path would be to add in 2 CPU, tier 3 blocks, 2 generators, 1 shield, 2 Gatling guns, 4 rocket launchers, and a constructor. And it can do it all. And I think I got everything else I need. So, all right, that kind of does it for this. The actual building out of it, just curious. Well, I don't know. I don't really want to do that on the same video. And I'm just kind of curious if you're interested in seeing the rest of this being done or not. Basically trying to do up the interior, fix up the textures on the body, obviously finish up the block work that's missing, and do a little bit more testing on it. So I'll save that for another video. Right now I just wanted to get through the logistics to see what was possible and what isn't possible on the ship, because it's worthwhile to know. I know it looks like a cluster right now, but it'll come back together pretty quickly, I think. Anyway, you all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed this. If you've got any other questions or comments or anything, please let me know. If I missed anything on this that you would like to see it do or have or something like that, let me know. Typically, I want it to have pretty much all your SV survival comforts in the end. So basically fridge, armor locker, constructor, there's not that much with an SV. There's actually more parts to put in with an HV on that. I wanted to keep it with warp drive regardless of tier level. Shield would be obviously only at tier 3. And the extra guns and weapons. But at this point in time, I know it could fly with weight. At tier 3 with the 4 rocket launchers plus the Gatling guns, you could take on POIs with it. I'm not saying going after super tough POIs with it, but you take on earlier planet POIs. And the great thing about, and kind of in my opinion, a broken mechanic with the shield itself is the fact that, like I think I've said this before too, if I was playing the game for real, I would go in and I would do my thing and shoot as many turrets as I could. And when my shield was getting down to the point where it was going to give out, I would leave the area, let it charge back up, and come back in and repeat. And I found that with the shield, this thing could be made out of carbon fiber with literally no defense at all, and you could still do that same method. So I do think overall that shields are kind of a broken mechanic. I kind of like the idea of actually taking damage before there was shields. It required you to beef up the ship a little bit better and not have it as vulnerable. But then when you get your ship back and you're missing blocks and things are all dented up and everything, that's kind of annoying too. But when I used to play the game, you could repair things on the field, and a big part of that also was bringing spare parts with me. I've lost many SVs out in the field, usually when I was romping around inside a POI and had the SV parked outside and then wasn't paying attention, and drones came by and started shooting at it. And then I couldn't necessarily get back to it quick enough to save it. So I started bringing around extra generators and extra core and extra thrusters and extra RCS and extra cockpits and all kinds of stuff. Plus, in combination with the multi-tool where you could repair blocks, I did a lot of field repairs on ships. So if they did take damage and I felt the ship was becoming like dangerously close to failing, I would get out there and start to put things back into the ship to make it work again and to fix it up out on the field. Now a shield pretty much removes the need to ever do that. And unfortunately, I thought that was one of the coolest game mechanics it had. It was kind of a lesson learned when I first started playing it. I didn't realize that. I went out to a POI many kilometers away from my base, and I got my SV done blown up. And I ended up walking back in the dark to my base and realized that, man, if I would have just had like an extra core on me and an extra generator and a couple extra thrusters and maybe a cockpit, I could have slapped that back on the ship and flew it back to the base. And that's when I really started liking the game, because I thought it was really interesting to figure out those kinds of game mechanics in there. Unfortunately, the shield kind of removes all of that. It doesn't if you don't have a ship without a shield, obviously, but I guess I don't hate it either. I feel it's still kind of overpowered, I guess, and like the trick I was talking about with, you know, hit and run with shield ships. In my opinion, it makes it far too easy. As an example, let's say I had something just stupid weak. Let me find, what did I call this thing? A mite. Say I had this original, really old mite, this thing. Built this ages ago. Literally, I don't know what the ship just did there, but literally, if this thing had a shield on it and a couple rocket launchers at least, or something that would be able to shoot POI turrets decently, I could take down a POI with it. Guaranteed. You know, come in, take a few shots, run away, come back in, take a few shots, run away. And that is a problem, I think. And it's so easy to do. It's not even like cheating. I mean, it's just like, who wouldn't do that? I mean, who's going to want to sit there and have their ship get blown up? There's no reason to, because you have a shield. I guess if you get trapped and cannot escape from getting hit, that's a different story, but you can always escape, unless it's PvP maybe. But with the AI, you can always escape, so you can always do that. And that's, I don't have a solution for that myself, but I do think it is a problem overall. Okay, well, I didn't mean to do all this, and I will shut up now. I plan on another video, possibly even tomorrow yet, on doing the next and final steps. Basically, the next video I'd want to finish off the ship, and maybe even upload it up to the post. We'll see how long it takes, but I got to basically redesign the entire interior, make sure it has all the obvious places to put in all the parts, and maybe even have a little sign in there on what you do to upgrade it. But it's not too complicated, and I did not want the players to necessarily have to screw with thrusters. So anyway, see you later all.